you. I want to say thank you to all of you for having me here today. I still don't know why. I'm still trying to find out who suggested my name. They're refusing to tell me. But thank you. It's such an honor and privilege to be here, to share some thoughts. My contact with St. John's was mainly in basketball at Chipma at Spanda many, many years ago, when we were co-conspirators against Chipma. And it's good to be here. I want to especially pay tribute to Dr. Jayasree Thomas, whom I have not met. And in the last 4 days I was at Vellore for various meetings, but many people who knew her and had heard I would be doing this oration were telling me about her. I joined MBBS 2 months after she finished her MD in pathology. April 80 she finished and I joined in June 80. And I want to thank her family and the Alumni Association for finding this beautiful way of remembering her. That reminds, looks backwards and yet looks forwards at the same time. Thank you. I want to thank especially Savita and Maya for chasing me and ensuring I got here. They kept asking me for a topic. I can't think in advance. I can't stand in one place and talk either. I'm a bit hyperkinetic. So I had to give them a topic and I couldn't think of what to give, so I said, why not? Allowing me time to start thinking about what we should do. And Maya wanted me to speak about work with malaria. So I'm going to divide up the talk into 2 parts, one in context and then on our journey with malaria. Of course, the question was who me. I looked at a list of people who've done this oration before and it psyched the daylights out of me. All professors and deans and big people who, my teachers and heroes. Whatever Prem says is not necessarily true. I'm just enjoying myself in a small place. The advantage of being in a small place is that you can be a big man in your backyard. And after some time you start believing yourself. So I will just take you through a little bit of the story because some of my friends who are here, including classmates from first standard, are here. So let me just tell you a bit of the story. I grew up in, 2 of my classmates from first standard. I grew up in CMC Vellore as the son of the chaplain. It's a burden to grow up as the son of a chaplain. You're expected to be good because your father is good, which isn't fair. It was really interesting because for my pre-degree, my parents sent me to Kerala because they felt I should be able to speak my mother tongue. And I studied at a Catholic college, St. Berkman's College in Jayasree. The first day in, the seniors call you and say, hey, what's your name? What does your father do? I said, he's a priest. And they said, are you? What happened? So I am the son, grandson, and great-grandson of a priest. Growing up in Vellore. I get this right? Yeah. My connection with St. John's is also through this family of ours. My sister, Anna Oommen, Lali as she was known, the clinical psychologist who worked here in St. John's for some time, had her 2 babies here. I came when she delivered, and Dr. Prabha had done a cesarean for her. And then worked at Nimhan's for many years before she passed away around 10 years ago. My little sister, Sarah Oommen, did her MSc nursing here and worked in the nursing services when Sister Carol was nursing superintendent. Sister Carol is now in Chhattisgarh, so we are in contact. And so I have 2 sisters who have worked with St. John's before. The little one learned very quickly. In a family like ours, you've got to cover your ears if you want to survive. And she did. I joined medicine in 1980. We were the batch when the Madras University had hiccups and decided to decrease the course from 5.5 years to 4.5 years. So we were a double batch. And one of my classmates, they was here now. What I remember of, no, sorry. What I remember of student days was primarily extracurricular. I was not a good student, still not a good student. In physiology, I developed a theory called the ischio-eyelid reflex. Continuous pressure on the ischio tuberosities causes depression of the eyelids. I could not stay awake in class. I just couldn't stay awake. One physiology tutorial, we had this Professor Isaac who was taking tutorials. There were only two of us on the other side of the table. I slept off. But he was so nice that he didn't ask me, he didn't wake me up. He asked the other chap all the questions, and at the end he told him, pick it up and take it home. The guy cursed me a lot, but today he's a cardiothoracic surgeon in the UK, Ira Goldsmith, and so I think I did my part in his education. But yes, college was such fun. Velos is a lovely scheme which you also have of 2 years of service at the end of your course. People call it a bond. I think it's a phenomenal idea because passing the MBBS and becoming a doctor are two totally different things. And that's finished school. And so 2 years when you can't join for a postgraduate course is a fantastic idea. And I thoroughly enjoyed those 2 years and grew up. My first year I did in community medicine in Vellore itself. And then there was this hospital in Orissa where they were short of doctors and they needed somebody. There's many stories as to how I landed up there. They was asking, I think partly because I was the president of the Students Association and possibly the principal wanted me as far away as possible. That could be part of the story. But partly because I was desperate to get out of Vellore and see this country and find my context for what I was searching. So November 87, I joined this little hospital. I knew no Odia. My Hindi was abominable. I got 44% in ICSE. You can't learn Hindi in Tamil Nadu of our time. So, and you're a pastor's son, you don't even get to watch Hindi movies. But it was a lovely year. It was an absolutely lovely year. For a variety of reasons. I walked into an epidemic of meningococcal meningitis. Thanks to my sleep in class, I didn't know that was possible. I had a vague idea that you could have Japanese encephalitis epidemics, but not meningococcal meningitis. In my estimate, maybe 2,000 people died in a period of 3 months. Nobody knows. Everything got covered up. And it was a rude shock and a waking up, and a struggle to try and respond in the best ways possible. Sorry, yeah. Also, my boss was a surgeon, Chhattisgarhi, who thought all males have to be surgeons, and that is a hormonal issue. And so when I said I'd got into community health, he was most upset, and so said, can you look after pediatrics? So for 1 year I was the acting pediatrician, and we used to put in brackets 90% acting and 10% pediatrician. And, but a lot of learning. A lot of learning and a lot of fun. But it changed my life because it showed me that while I was working in Vellore, I was another cog in the wheel. The day I would leave, there'd be 25 people who wanted my job. But I found that the things I started doing in Bissamcuttack all shut down the day I left. And I was questioning what I'm doing. I called my parents over to Bissamcuttack to say, please take a look and tell me what you think. My parents were very wise people. My father said, he was the chaplain of CMC Vellore from 64 to 81. And he dealt with a lot of young people who thought they were in love. You were actually in love with the idea of being in love. So he said, you have to differentiate between love and infatuation. The best way to find out is to leave and look at it from a distance. So I did that. But 6 months later, I was convinced that this is what I want to do in life. And I joined for an MD in community medicine and got married somewhere in between. My wife Mercy is a nurse. She grew up in Bangalore and in Chennai. And if the pictures are looking blurred, so are the memories, don't worry. And I had thought marriage was incompatible with work in the vague places. But after 1 year in Bissamcuttack, I realized I'm not going back unless I'm married. It was too lonely. And thankfully there was somebody else who was mad enough to think the same. And so we got married in 91 in the college chapel, and that's my father looking over my shoulder back. Only physically, not figuratively. And she did her MSc in nursing, we finished. and I did a year at rehab just because I want the joy of working with Dr. Suranjan. They say you get the values of your boss, and I thought I needed some values. So I worked with him for a year, and we shifted back to Bissamcuttack in '93. It's 25 years this year. Dedication and stagnation look the same. So people ask me, you must be sacrificing your life. Sacrificing everything. It's great fun. We enjoy what we're doing. And I wouldn't exchange this for anything. I feel sorry for you guys who live in cities. We have it all. We have it all. Now, Bissamcuttack, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the place. I'm not good at standing in one place. But that's just to, a family now, that's us. My son is studying in Azim Premji University here in Bangalore, doing an MA in education. He's living my dream, growing his hair. My father wouldn't let me. My father was bald, and I think that's one reason he didn't want me to grow my hair. Yeah. Okay. I want to just take you through context of what we're doing and where we're going. Usually when I speak, it's not in such a beautiful auditorium. It's usually under mango trees. And we do what we call powerless, pointless presentation. So, when I started working in the tribal community, we used to do sessions what we called from my village to my world. Because the concept of India, or the concept of nation, the concept, whatever, the word, was different. So I developed this idea, of teaching geography. This is the map of India. Kashmir, Kanyakumari, Delhi, Kolkata. But dil hai Odisha. So, yeah. So if you look at Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh and Orissa, it's a fascinating part of the country. I think that much of the future of India depends on what happens in these three states. For a variety of reasons. I call this the M area. Mountains, minerals, mining, multinationals, Maoists, malaria, malnutrition, maternal mortality. You've got all the M's there. It's a fascinating region. And we're so privileged, so lucky to be allowed to live there and be part of something that is much bigger than us. Orissa is a lovely state. If it occurs to you on the map of Orissa, you will find that all the states around us have split. Bihar, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Andhra, Telangana. Orissa hasn't. And there are reasons there. It's all there if you can see. 8% of India is tribal. In Odisha it is 22%. In my district of Rayagada it is 55%. In our block of Bissamcuttack it is 62%. The block has about 90,000 population in 315 villages, 62% tribal, 17% Dalit, and therefore almost 80% SC and ST, and yet the tail wags the dog. The minority always controls. And so it's a fascinating place to work, especially if you're a community medicine person who's trying to understand why are people sick and why do some people get well. This hospital was started in 1954 by a Danish lady, Liz Madsen, we call her Dr. Ma. Interestingly, most of the best mission hospitals in India were started by single women. It's very interesting. But people get upset when I say these things. I used to edit the Christian Medical Journal of India at one point, and I put this up as a point for discussion, and I got angry letters saying God started those hospitals, not the women. It had to be a man who wrote the letter, but it doesn't matter. But it is an interesting phenomenon. Over the last 64 years, we've had only 4 leaders. I'm just throwing these things because there are thoughts and truths in history. There are only 4 leaders in 64 years. 3 women, only 1 man. The myths are in plenty. The first one was from outside the country. The second, Dr. Henry, was from inside the country but outside the state, Chhattisgarh. The third was from inside the state but outside the district, Cuttack. And the fourth, our present medical superintendent, Dr. Hema, is from the district itself. I call that contextualization of mission. that our job is to build local capacity. So my role there is to do the talking. Many others do the work. It's a beautiful region. Would it be possible to turn off some of the lights? Is that okay? Or can you see pictures? I can't see from here. Are you okay? The beauty of the region, it's a lovely region. And these are the Nilgiri Hills, and if you are reading newspapers or checking out stuff which is happening, it's a very dicey area because it's full of bauxite. On one hand, people wanting to mine, and the other hand, a tribal community saying no. The Dongria community, which has stood out as being compared with the Avatar movie, forget the tales. But there are huge things happening in front of us. And it's a lovely area. It is in this context that we're trying to ask, what are the health issues? The hospital today is 250 beds, we call it 200 beds, it feels much nicer. But we're running around 110% bed occupancy for the last 3-4 years now. We don't have a vision mission statement, we haven't had the time to do one. So I ask ourselves, what are we called to be? And what are we called to do? My understanding is that we are a faith-based community that serves the people of the region through healthcare, training, and education for children. This is our new building which we just completed. I'm in charge of architecture and construction now. So when you're in a small place, you do what needs to be done. You don't look at your degrees, and your degrees don't define you. They don't limit you. So right now, I'm looking after construction as well. This is a new building we've done. The outpatients, we have around 250 to 300 patients a day average. That's our medical student who's an ophthalmologist, but also does obstetrics and neonatology and whatever needs to be done. We all multi-scale. We all multitask. Otherwise, you can't cut the cost. And you can't be available to people. Our nearest referral is 250 kilometers away in Vishakhapatnam. Even our oxygen cylinders come from Vizag. So there's stuff to happen, there's stuff to do. Our radiologist is a staff child who grew up on our campus, studied on a school on campus, and then went on to do MBBS and MD. So you invest, you build, you bring back. The new casualty we just opened, lots of emergencies of all sorts. The labor home with about 10 to 12 deliveries a day, mostly referred because there are only 2 hospitals in the district which can do a cesarean section. And therefore, it all piles up. You can't have an ICU because if you use the word ICU, you need 4 doctors full time. Never happen. So you can call it whatever you want, Nehru, Gandhi, whatever you want to call it. You don't use the word ICU. So you learn to work your way around it. Newborn care, a lot of prematurity, low birth weight, lots of babies coming in from all around us, from the neighboring districts and district headquarter hospitals. Lots of surgery, because there are very few other places which can do surgery in our region. And so we have, if you divide 6,000 something by 365, you get about 17 surgeries a day, including Sunday, Monday, New Year, Christmas, whatever. Lots and lots of work. We are about 17 doctors now, we all pitch in to make sure things are possible. The lab and the numbers. The need in the country, especially in central India, is huge. The challenges are many, but it's fun. It's worth doing. And that's what I'd like to leave with you. We have a College of Nursing, well, it got upgraded to college last month. It's a School of Nursing, which we started in 1978 with ARM training, then added on general nursing training, and a BSc program from last month. My wife Mercy is the principal of the College of Nursing. We take only students from Orissa for Odisha. So every policy is driven by philosophy. Otherwise you fill up with Malayalis going to Saudi Arabia. I didn't say it. I didn't say it. But we take only girls who've done their 10th and 12th in Orissa, because our target is to change the health of Orissa. And 95% of them stay in the state, in government, in private, wherever they can make a difference. Trying to build the best quality possible at the lowest cost possible. We've started a lab technician training program 3 years ago. An English medium school on campus, ICSC, smart, what do you call it? Digital interactive boards. Just because you're in a backward area is not an excuse to be backward. You have to do the best you can. A child born there is as much a citizen of this country as somebody born in Delhi. And therefore you still have to do your best. It's not a reason for compromise. And then we come to the community department, which is my passion, my faith, my understanding of why I exist. We call the work Mitra because if you translate community health department to any Indian language, it sounds terrible. Nobody knows what you're talking about. You need a name. Mitra is a nice name. It was there before. It stands for Madsen's Institute for Tribal and Rural Advancement. Doesn't matter. Like I was telling them this morning, there's an organization called the Federation for Rural and Urban Development, which is FRAUD. So names are named. Now, the practice of community health in our country is fascinating. When I got into work there, I had trained in CMC Vellore in a very different atmosphere. It was challenging because I had to unlearn and relearn many things. When you're working with a tribal community, you have to be very careful that you don't do more damage than good. Because communities that have survived for centuries in the forest should not be tinkered with without understanding what you're doing. The definition of development is to make other people like yourself. We don't say it, but that's how we work. And one of them is bad enough. And so we have to develop mechanisms by which the community will not allow us to do anything unless they pass a resolution in writing. We fix that into our way of working. And over the years, I found that what we had been taught as smart objectives didn't work, and we moved to dreaming sessions, community dreaming sessions. And through many, many dreaming sessions, sitting with villagers, sitting with communities, sitting with a team which is predominantly tribal, asking people, what is your dream? Where do you think we should go? It fitted together into a dream of a day when everybody will be healthy, a day when everybody will be educated, a day when there is no more poverty, no more hunger, a day when everybody, regardless of caste, color, creed, gender, economic status, education status, can live with dignity, because that's what this country is about. It's supposed to be about. So then you work against these dreams and keep measuring yourself against the dreams. And it helps you to focus what you do. The process we use is that it is contextualized in relationships. Our understanding of community work is that it is essentially a relationship with people. This is an idea which has evolved over the years. We found that our work is primarily to share the pain of people. And in that sharing, they change, we change, and situations change. For example, the disease of sickle cell anemia. What they taught us in college was that it was a genetic disease and so on and so forth. And you learn how to manage crises, but they don't tell you the inside story. Because besides the physical pain of painful crises of sickle cell anemia, there is economic pain. It's an extremely expensive disease to have. But it's not just that. There's a social pain. When you do health education and the parents find out that there's something in my genes that went to my child, and that's why this child is suffering, the guilt of the parents is something they didn't prepare us for. And when the child finds out and says, if you were not my father, this wouldn't have happened to me, you understand the price of health education and awareness. And every genetic problem in our country takes on a caste connotation because we marry within our communities. So if a disease is occurring among the upper caste, the disease becomes upper. There's funding, there's research, everybody wants to take it out. But if a disease is occurring primarily in the Dalit community, as it is in central India, nobody wants to touch. Except in Maharashtra, because all Dalit movements begin from Maharashtra. And therefore, if you have sickle cell anemia in Maharashtra, you get bus pass, pension, a lot of help. But everywhere else, no. Orissa has just started. So understanding this, you cannot figure it out unless you're willing to cross the table, go to the other side, and share the pain of people. And then dream of a better tomorrow. So that's the process we use. I just use sickle as a methodology. So as primary health care, we have nurses living in the field, working with the issues as they come, malaria, malnutrition, sickle cell anemia, a lot of childhood hypothyroidism, creating strategies for this, and now hypertension, chronic kidney disease of unknown origin. As the community diagnosis changes, you keep changing your strategy and what needs to happen, using the principles of primary health care. The dream is always a healthy community, and people-centered and nurse-managed, because doctors are endangered species in forest areas. You make doctor-based programs, they don't last. You can't sustain them. And therefore, it's nurse-run programs. But over time, people told us that we need education. One village where we were doing a community dreaming session dreamed that one day they would have collectors. There's God and collectors on the same level. A collector from our tribe. We'll have doctors and nurses and engineers and police and forest guards and drivers. Those are the ones they heard. But the old man in the village said, don't be stupid. Don't make stupid dreams, because every one of your dreams is dependent on education. And then he looked at me and said, where did you study? You don't look like you studied in one of these government schools where the teacher comes twice in a year. So I said, no, I didn't. It was a private school. So he said, what's private? The tribal leader. So I said, private means run by anybody other than government. He said, is that a law? So I said, yes. So he said, write that as a dream. Give us a school that is true to our people, our language, our culture, our religion, where our children are not ashamed to be tribal. And though I ran away from that meeting because I got scared, within 1 year we started. And that's Mitra Residential School, Kachapauji. We started in 98. It's 20 years this year. Grade 1 to 5, Kui medium. Kui is our language, it's the Dravidian language. Doesn't have a script, so we use Kui as a script. But we begin in Kui and mainstream Odia. There are 160 children studying there. The school is owned by 16 villages. Only their children can study there. Lottery selection. And today there are about 5 kids who are doing engineering, 2 have finished, 3 are in college. There were 5 or 6 who've done nursing. A whole lot of them, 7 or 8 of them who won panchayat elections. Many who are government teachers. And a revolution is coming. I am no less than anybody else. There's one child from the school who last year wrote the CBSE exam and got a 10 on 10 CGPA. I've never met anybody like that before. In fact, her name is Mitra Goguranga. Her parents named her after the program. And I feel ashamed. Because I came, I think, 21st out of a class of 23 in my 10th standard. Blessed with undeserved opportunities. Never took them seriously. But I'm honored now to give. So, this is what we're at. Gurukul system, no furniture. Teacher also sits on the ground. Basically, you don't have money, so you baptize it with some philosophy. But giving children a chance to be children. Then there are government schools where the teacher turns up once and, Independence Day, Republic Day, and Saraswati Puja. You can't do anything. But if you can't beat them, join them. Put in one volunteer teacher. Run the school. Ring the bell. Start the class. Never ask for permission. It's easier to get forgiveness than to get permission. If you ask, they'll say no. So you do. If anybody catches you, say, sorry, I didn't know. In the meantime, the children got education. Why not? Why not? Preschool programs, youth programs, working with young people, working with elderly, we call that aging with dignity. And then of course people come to you saying, can you please teach us how to do this? So training programs, doing consultancy for government. The sky is the limit when you're out there. Because after you stay for some time in one place and your hair grays, people start assuming you know something. That opens doors, and then you use those doors. I jumped this. And you have to track change, because in community it's easy to convince yourself that you're doing well till you look at the numbers. So we use numbers. And so when we started, this is 95 with an IMR of 201 per thousand and an under 5 mortality of 295 per thousand. The denominator is very small. I know you will shoot me for this, doesn't matter. You club data for 3-4 years together, you can get the trend. but we see change. And I'm grateful. Because it's very rare that you get a chance to see the change in your own lifetime. I didn't expect this. And we are really humbled and privileged to be around to see what has happened. Similarly with education. In the hill areas when we started, there had been only 2 metric pass in history. It's around 150 now. 3 boys to every girl who went to school. It's 50-50 now. A female literacy rate of 1.2%. It's moving now. Change is possible. There's a lot of good things happening in the country. I am not something special. There are so many people doing so much good work in the country. I think you gave an award to Dr. Sister Aquinas last week. Fantastic stuff they do. Randall is sitting in the back. There are lots of good people in the country doing lots of good things. And that's the hope I'd like to bring to the table. So this is from our 20-year celebration of the school in May this year, when the community decided it was time to celebrate and gather under the mango trees to dance and sing and do stuff together. This is the second time they have done this. When our first children finished +2, the community said, we want to have a party. That was hardcore Maoist time. Any big meeting would have been called a Maoist gathering. So I told them, please don't do this. And they said, we didn't ask you. You're invited to come. And each family put in 20 rupees and a measure of rice. So I said, okay, rice, and you get the dal. And then they told me, you pay for the chicken? So I said, okay, I pay for the chicken. And we had a party. 2,200 people had come that day. But I say this because at this program, people are getting up and praising us and saying, oh, Dr. Jayasree did this, and Mitra did that, and Christian Hospital, Bissamcuttack, and all this stuff they kept saying. So I got up and I tell stories. I don't know if you read Anthony de Mello. Phenomenal. So I told on Tony de Mello's stories. I told him that there was once an elephant in the forest, which was running through the forest, and there was a little rickety wooden bridge across the stream, and the elephant ran over the stream, and the bridge shook, and there was a tick in the ear of the elephant. And the tick looked back and said, man, we shook that bridge. So I said that and sat down. There's a little silence. And then a chap who's now the MLA, at that time was Jila Parshad, he gets up and says, always in third person, this Dr. Johnny is very smart. He said you have done a lot of work. He tells us stories about elephants and ticks. He's trying to tell us we are the elephant and he's the tick. I asked, which is the elephant? Which is the tick? And then he said, I want to tell Dr. Jayasree and Mitra, why did the elephant run? Maybe the tick bit the elephant. That is why it ran. So you're a good tick, keep biting. So putting a story together, that's what I want to say. We are just a tick in the ear of the elephant. To take credit for this would be wrong, because there's so much more happening. But it's our privilege to be part of the shaking of the bridge. I'm going to move across to malaria and try to tell you the story of the last 25 years of my obsessive compulsive neurosis with malaria. I've never done this before, told the whole story, and I hope it will be useful to some of you. When in the beginning of my term in Bissamcuttack, I was trying to understand how much malaria is there. I realized nobody knows. Because all the data in the country was not reliable, to put it mildly. So if you look at the estimates of malaria mortality in the country, and this is all data from around 2000 आगे. The government was saying about 1,000 deaths a year. The WHO was saying maybe 15 to 20,000. If you look at the study done by National Institute of Malaria Research, ICMR, based on medical cause, certification of cause of death, they were saying maybe 50,000. And your part of the study, the Million Death Survey, which was showing maybe 200,000 deaths. So is this a disease that kills 1,000 or 200,000 Indians per year in this country? Nobody really knew. If you look at MVVDCP data, It said, this is 98, it said that maybe 24% of the malaria cases in the country are from Orissa. 41% of the falciparum malaria and 50% of the deaths. A state with 3.5% of the population of the country was accounting officially for 50% of the malaria deaths in the country. We were the whipping boy of NVBDCP. Even look at the MDS data, the million death survey data. It was showing 25%. So whichever estimate you take, the deaths due to malaria in Orissa were far more than in any other state in the country. This much we knew. Exact numbers, nobody was sure. Bissamcuttack. I was trying to do Amitabh Bachchan's baritone voice like in Bollywood. It sounded more like Sachin Tendulkar, forgive me. But sometime later, you look at this data from last month. On the 19th of November 2018, the World Malaria Report 2018 was released in Maputo, Mozambique. And the data is showing that while global malaria increased from 217 million to 219 million, India is a country which has reported a 24% reduction between 16 and 17, which is driven by an 80% fall in Orissa's malaria. It's amazing. Suddenly, Orissa is a toast of town. Everybody is coming to Orissa to ask, what happened? And it's a phenomenal change which has occurred. Who did it? The credit goes to the government of Orissa and to the state NVBDCP. They've done something really phenomenal. To the leadership in the state, to the malaria network team in the field. I'm on a WhatsApp group with the state malaria team. Everybody from the health secretary down to the block malaria officer is on the same group. And whatever you do on malaria in the state, you put it on the group. And so one block officer in some small block somewhere says, I conducted a malaria quiz in the school. And when the health secretary WhatsApps back saying, good work, you feel like working some more. The process they have used is very interesting. You must also give some credit to unknown climatic changes. So when we're celebrating before malaria comes back, so when we're there, we want to celebrate it. Is the data true? Nobody can say sure for the numbers, but I know in our hospital, our malaria has come down enormously. In my community program area, we had no malaria cases for about 4 months, which I have not seen in 25 years. So reduction is there. Exact numbers is anybody's guess, but the trend is phenomenal. How did they do it? What did they do? Passionate, competent leadership. One man, Madan Mohan Pradhan, the Joint Director of Malaria, he was, they transferred him after that. Brilliant guy. Committed. Understands malaria. For us, malaria is a matter of life and death, not an academic issue. And he led from the front. And though he is not in the post right now, he still leads it from the front, whichever post they put him in. But scientifically sound and reality grounded, rooted strategies. There was provision from the Global Fund and from the government of Odisha. Plus, the network of Ashas in Orissa do blood tests and treat falciparum malaria, so that your treatment, your diagnosis and treatment is available at the village level. It doesn't work everywhere. But compared to Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand, which have not done this is a phenomenal availability. Secondly, long-lasting insecticide-treated nets, given by the Global Fund, but distributed meticulously by the state government. And then an initiative that we call Daman, which I'll come back to, which is a state-specific strategy. That's a big story. But within the big story are many little stories, like jigsaw puzzles. And I want to tell the story from what I see of it, and our little role in this big story. I call that malaria mania. In 93, when I moved from Vellore to Bissamcuttack, all I knew about malaria would be good to write an essay, but was practically useless in controlling malaria. I could treat malaria, but I didn't know how to control malaria. 3 lovely years in Chad with Arvind Kasturi. Regret he's not here, but we were kindred souls. He was a year junior to me for MD. And then a year in rehab. I was moving to Bissamcuttack. I spent a week, Mercy and I spent a week with my parents in Kerala before going. Some very good advice. My mother told us, remember our calling is to obedience, not necessarily to success. Something that has stood us in extremely good stead. My father said, okay, so you're going to Orissa and you're going to serve all these poor people. Do you think that at the end of it they'll touch your feet and say, sir, what a great man you are? He said, no. He said, the person for whom you do the most will stab you in the back. That's the deal. It happened to Gandhiji, it happened to Jesus, why should it happen to you? And when that happens, what will be your response? Will you say, after all I did to them, look what they did to me? Then don't go. Settle here. Because that's the deal. If you're ready for it, go. These 2 things my mother and father told me were extremely valuable. Because yes, you got stabbed in the back. That's part of the game. But you were forewarned. And so as I started in 93, this is the thought with which we started grappling with this. In 94, we were putting together our Mitra primary health program. Village by village, walking 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers a day, knapsacks with samosas and medicines. And, starting in the morning, maybe 7:30, getting home 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the night, getting ready the next morning and starting out, village by village. And everywhere we went, we were seeing so much fever. We were doing immunization, DPT and OPV and measles and stuff. But I put a notebook in every village. And we asked the village to record, we call it the Supdt, record births, deaths, pregnancies and illnesses. The illness khata finished so fast, so we stopped that. It was just a waste of paper. So we said, okay, births, deaths, pregnancies. We still do this since 94. By the end of the year, we started collating the data and we found maybe 1/3 to 1/2 of the deaths were due to fever, probably malaria. But what we were doing was immunizing children for diseases they don't have. Because that's what I was trying to do. And so by 95, we realized we had to search. We had to find a solution to the problem of malaria. Apologies to some of the music. Where do you find information? There's no internet, there's no access. We had no books. I had no money. I wrote a letter to the Secretary General of the World Health Organization, Geneva. No harm done. I wrote a letter saying, sir, we have the malaria, you have the books. Can we exchange? By reply post, I got 2 books on some malaria stuff, technical series stuff. You were desperate. I needed information. And so I was searching, and I went to malaria gurus in different parts of the country, said, please teach me. Got thrown out of places. I used to wear kurta and have a shoulder bag. You know, that's a danger signal in any government office. Red flag, NGO coming. So I got thrown out of places. They said, you fellows only create trouble for us and all. I switched to white shirts after some time, at least to get into the office. But somebody directed me to a person called Dr. Jayasree Oriantaion, a Russian malariologist with the WHO in the CR office in Delhi. I walked into his office with trepidation. This man sitting in his chair said, 2 minutes, I give you only 2 minutes. So I said, sir, I come from South Odisha. My people are dying of malaria. Please tell me what I should do. He looked at me and said, do you come from Bissamcuttack? So I said, how do you know? He says, do you know what Bissamcuttack means? I said, no, sir. He said, you don't know your history, you're coming to me? Read your history. I said, sorry, sir. Bissamcuttack means poisonous fort. It got its name because of malaria. I said, sorry, sir, I didn't know. He said, sit down. I sat down. Corrected. And then he taught me. And he went to the back, took out books from behind his shelf and gave it to me and said, read. And he said, go to Keonjhar district in Orissa. British Council is doing something with medicated mosquito nets. This will help you. I'd never heard of it. So I went back, my team together, and we took tribal leaders and we went 24-hour drive across Orissa to Keonjhar, where we went and visited the British Council and care what they were doing with medicated mosquito nets and saw the amazing difference it could make. But they had funding. We had no funding. So on the way back, we discussed it and said, we need to do this for our people. But our tribal leaders told us, don't tell anybody about the subsidy. Tell them they have to pay for the nets. Otherwise, you can't afford it. And so we came back, and in '96, we started what we call the People's Movement Against Malaria. The basic funda is that the primary stakeholder is the mother and the father in the house. And at 12 o'clock in the night, when the child has malaria, it is only they who will be present. So it's their capacity to build. So we said, empowering individuals and communities with the knowledge and skills necessary to control their malaria. So malaria education campaign, street dances and stuff. And then using medicated mosquito nets, neem oil as a repellent, and we had only chloroquine for treatment. I don't know if any of you have tried neem oil. If you apply neem oil on yourself, no mosquito will come near you, no people will also come near you. It stinks to high heavens. But ICMR had done some research which showed that if you dilute it down to 2%, 5% also, it works with the mosquitoes. And so we were trying out these ideas and putting it together and accessing it, available in the field. I got a credit facility from the hospital of 1 lakh a year, with which we bought mosquito nets. People would pay back, village by village. Each village would say, we need this many nets. You medicate the nets with deltamethrin, teach people how to use them. But this was totally new, because nobody had seen a mosquito net. When we started, in the villages we were working with, there were only 15 nets altogether, and those were in non-tribal hands. Most people had not seen a mosquito net. So you had to put them up and let children get inside, see if they can breathe or not. This is 96, 97. Each village was writing resolutions saying, please come and teach us about malaria. We initially did meetings for everybody, and then we found if the men are present, the women won't talk. And the women are not convinced, you can't do anything because the money is in the women's hands. The guy has to go and ask for permission if he wants a drink. It's a phenomenal system. So if mosquito nets are to be sold, are to be bought by people, women have to be convinced. So we started doing separate meetings for men and women. This was the first time women had sat in meetings in our area. We used malaria for many other things. And villages started ordering nets. And they would pay back the money within 6 months. They said it took 1 year, and you rotate that money and do one more village. So we did this 96, 97, and amazingly the malaria crashed. Within 1 year, we had a 30% decrease in fever cases, a 35% decrease in fever deaths, and a 50% reduction in hospital admissions for malaria from the project area. We couldn't believe it. Valerie Orlov himself came running from Delhi saying, what have you done? And he called the state officials and said, listen to this fellow. And he took my internal papers and went and published it in the WHO regional forum because he said, the rest of the world needs to know this. This was 97. But malaria comes back. The minute you think you have reached, it fools you. And so, sure enough, but by then, people had heard. And the first people to pick up were the Orissa Catholic Health Association. Sisters caught on. There were 100 dispensaries all over Orissa. They quickly caught on, and Sister Stella, who used to be the president of the OCHA at that time, she caught me and said, you have to teach my sisters this. And so, 98 to 2000, we were training others. I've stayed in every bishop's house in Orissa, done training programs to reach diocese, so that every sister group could take on about 20 villages and reduce malaria. Government was asking. But this for me was my passion. Anybody came to my house in the evening, Mercy would tell them, if you want to go home today, don't mention the word malaria. I have to make breakfast for you. I can remember one day traveling on a train from Bhubaneswar to Chennai. Some girl was sitting opposite. She was playing with my little son. And she made the mistake of asking me something about what are the problems of Orissa. I lectured her on malaria all the way to Chennai. Poor girl got down and went. Months later, I get a phone call. Maybe a couple of years later, I get a phone call saying, hello, my name is Chitra Armugam. Do you remember me? I am the collector of Malkangiri district. I said, Yamo, solli irukkaala. I didn't know she was an IAS officer. But as luck would have it, she was posted in Malkangiri district, which is the Siberia of India. That's where they dump all the refugees they don't want. And she found malaria as a huge issue. So she called me up and said, can you please come here and teach me? what I should do. We worked together, we ran a campaign that we called I Cannot Afford Malaria. It was far cheaper for a family to prevent malaria than to treat malaria. It was really funny because Chitra, when I was in town, Chitra would cancel the movies. There was only one movie theatre in Malpagiri town called Bhagirathi Theatre. And they cancelled the movies and announced on a mic, today there will be class on malaria, everybody come. And it's a bit like this, movie theatres. So you do song and dance sequence, trying to teach malaria. And this is what I call pop malariology. I even wrote a paper called Roll Over Beethoven, because the big shots in malaria were angry with us. They in fact pulled me off the stage halfway through programs, told me to shut up and get out. I think it's because they had a lot of research projects running in Malkangiri, and if malaria decreased, the research would get stuck. I was angry, because it was the poor who were dying. And why should we who have the knowledge hide it from those who have the malaria? And so our job was to demystify malaria and make it available to the people who need it the most. I want to show you how we do this, because this is the epidemiology of malaria. Can I have 3 volunteers come on stage, please? This is getting boring. I want participatory communication. Come. Little gender balance will be nice. Can I have 3 people come here? Prem, come here. Come, Maya. Can I have one more person, please? Come, Alke, come. Yes, please come up here. Sorry to do this to you, but it's okay. Come. When you're trying to communicate the science of what you do, you have to find simple ways of putting it across. So I need you to, So Maya can stand here. Adho, if you can come this side. Just turn this way a little bit. Thank you. Ben, can you come here? Okay. So this is how we teach malaria in a village, or in a movie theatre, or in a state-level workshop on the elimination of malaria. There are 3 players in malaria. Parasite, the female Anopheles mosquito, and man. Can I have your hands, please? Where these 3 meet, there is malaria. Where these 3 don't meet, there is no malaria. How much malaria you will have in a given place depends on how much parasite you have, parasite density, how much Anopheles mosquito you have, vector density, how many people you have, population density, and how these 3 interact. That's all it depends on. It's not rocket science. The epidemiology of malaria is very simple. Now, how do you control malaria? You have 3 options. You can hit the parasite. That's diagnosis and treatment. You can hit the mosquito. That's vector control. You can turn you around. Change human behavior. So all malaria programs boil down to 3 things. Decreasing your parasite density, decreasing your vector density, and behavioral change and personal protection measures for people. If you do a combination of these 3, you get malaria control. It's not rocket science. It's very simple. But you need to understand, there are 120 types of Plasmodium malaria parasites. Only 4 and now 5 of them can transmit malaria. So we have to teach this to people, because people want to know. So we said 4 brothers: Plasmodium falciparum, Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium malariae, Plasmodium ovale. Now we said ovale, one went to Africa. That's ovale. One is very rare, malaria is gone. You have 2 brothers left. One is big brother, one is small brother. Falciparum vivax. Big brother can kill you, small brother can harass you. So you get the entire hypnocyte, everything one shot. But you need to understand, in Orissa, it's mostly big brother malaria. South India, you're mostly small brother malaria. And that's why we have so many deaths. You came to lecture. There are about 425 kinds of Anopheles mosquitoes, of which maybe 5 or 6 are important in Orissa. Of which the predominant one in Orissa, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh and Northeast is Anopheles fluviatilis, which breeds in slowly flowing water, not in stagnant water. And bites very midnight. All Anopheles mosquitoes bite from sunset to sunrise. But this one bites maximum around 10, 12, 2. You have to, I don't do research, I steal the research of others. So whenever the entomologists would come to do research in our area, we give them room in our guest house. We'll put one of our staff as translator, find all the findings, come back, and teach it to the public before they publish their paper. Because anyway, it's not going to reach the public. So this is what we've done for years together, put it together. Now if Anopheles fluviatilis is your vector, you can't stop its breeding. Because every stream is breeding Anopheles fluviatilis. But it bites very midnight. That's why mosquito nets are useful for fluviatilis areas. This is how you strategize. It's not rocket science, but if you've got the funda, it's easy. And you can do this in public, and then villagers are coming up with their own strategy. Sir, if the mosquito, they come up with their own ideas. Why not? Why not? So this is how we teach the epidemiology. Now, when I was in college, they taught us the life cycle of the malaria parasite, and it was taught so boringly. I divided between in man, in mosquito. They talk about the sexual cycle and the asexual cycle. And all the boys sleeping in the back row would wake up. What? What a parasite. Okay. What do you do? And this I thought, because you're doing a mass show, I don't plan to teach the life cycle, but somebody gets up and says, but why should I take primapin? And you can't explain that without life cycle. So you Bollywoodize it. And we put H, M, Miro is the hero. No, Mirozoites. And then you say G, that's Gametophytes. Male G, female G. They have brahmacharis waiting for a helicopter to come. Until this collector friend of mine went into meetings at the state level and said, what about the G? I had told her, please say gametocytes in big meetings. But but this is the way we played with it. The idea is demystification. The idea is making it possible for ordinary human beings who have the problem to solve their problem. And not holding it back so that only people with an MD in community medicine can pass. Knowledge belongs to everybody. And it is our job to demystify and put it in a language that people can use. By 2001, 2003, the idea was catching on. There's an organization called PREM, started by two fathers who stepped out of the church, Jacob Tundil and Chako Panaveru, to go into full-time social work. Jacob got cerebral malaria, and he was admitted in Ernakulam and Lissi hospital, where nobody would pick it up because they were thinking it was typhoid encephalopathy. And then when he recovered, he said, if this can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. I want you to teach my people how to protect themselves. And they had more money than I had, and so we could pick it up and do it across 1,000 villages. We came across another issue. What is the indicator? And if you look at the indicators of malaria control, which are taught to you in community health or done by the NBBDCP, they are primarily to assess performance of the government, not malaria. I remember telling the task force, the health secretary in government of Orissa once, Madam, I can decrease malaria to 0 in 6 months. She said, how will you do it? I said, break all the microscopes. Anyway, we're playing a game, let's play it properly. So we needed an indicator, and we created an indicator that we called point prevalence of malaria parasitemia in children under 5, or child parasite rate. All under 5 children are tested once during season. That's your denominator. And we found out of 15,676 children tested, 5,613 or 35.8% were positive with or without malaria. This is Africa levels of malaria which we had in South Orissa. This is 2001. Once they got the hang of it, they said, let's spread this to 6 districts, 7 districts. And we were doing this across 3,500 villages. And my job, our team's job, was to train people. Simple ideas that non-medical people can use. By 2007, our thinking was moving further. We were finding a lot of malnutrition, and I couldn't understand why my children should be malnourished. So we brought our severely malnourished children into the hospital and tested them, and everybody is positive for falciparum malaria. You treat it, the weight rises. And so we called it MAL, malaria-induced malnutrition. And we started working on it. We said, I'm not doing research in the common sense of the word, research is an attitude. We said, if we can block the malaria in our little children, in our malnourished children, they should survive this season and thereby move out of malnutrition. So we started putting them on chloroquine prophylaxis. And we found that there's a 74 children who on an average were losing 29 grams per month. Once put on the protocol, treat the malaria, put on chloroquine prophylaxis, they were gaining by 325 grams a month. And after 3 to 6 months, you graduate them, take off the chloroquine prophylaxis, and they were still gaining by less, but still gaining. We presented this to government. They didn't bite an issue. And then the Tata Trust discovered malaria. Because wherever they went, people were dying of malaria. And they contacted us and said, can you train our people? So we put together a network of NGOs across 4 districts in South Odisha. 10 NGOs including us. 630 villages, 1,51,000 population, and ran this strategy. The idea that is evolving little by little. If you look at the baseline of how much malaria there was, these are earlier ones, this is 2010 onwards, it's ranging between 22% and 61 or 62% of children were positive for malaria. Now if I take the data from our area, Mitra area alone for 2010, out of 1,245 children tested, 59% were positive. But the key issues are this. Of the positives, only 8% had fever. 92% were afebrile. Now the system taught us, college taught us, that if you have fever, test for malaria. You would miss 92% of the parasitemia. They call it asymptomatic malaria. I said, no, this is afebrile malaria. Because symptom of malaria could be malnutrition, failure to thrive, anemia, poor performance in school. And you say tribal children can't study. Blame the parasite. And therefore we started looking at this idea and saying, can you clear it? If you did an age-specific parasitemia rates, it was the lowest at 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, it starts rising. By 7, 8 was the highest amount of parasitemia we were seeing. Therefore, school health programs needed to do mass malaria testing in June, July, August, and you'll get better results in school. We started doing this as well. There were 7 villages that first year where all children were positive, not one negative. Small villages. These were the issues we were playing with. And so the Tata Trust South Orissa Malaria Initiative took off with these 10 NGOs. We had 5 strategies. Strategy number 1 is education for empowerment. Too much of our health education is just propaganda. Bring your children for polio drops. But unless you explain why, you don't empower. So we started doing education for empowerment. We started making accessible treatment in every village. We started looking at mosquitoes. We started looking at protection methods, including housing. And we started looking at monitoring this. And the results are like this. If you look at our program data, malaria percentage, child parasite rates, 59% came down to 33 the next year, 27 the next year, 11% the next year, went up to 15, 20, 18. But if you look at under 5 mortality at the same time, whenever this falls sharply, this falls sharply. This falls little bit, this falls little bit. This falls sharply, this falls. All-cause mortality in children under 5 is directly related to the amount of malaria there is in under 5 children. This was true with all the projects we were working with. We presented this to government annually, sharing the data. And then suddenly in 2016, it took off and became the project that is now being acclaimed worldwide, which is called Daman or Durgama Anchal Malaria Nirnakana, which means eliminating malaria from inaccessible villages. In April, May, June 2017, Global Fund gave mosquito nets, long-lasting nets to Orissa. It was distributed. In July, the much postponed Daman took off. That's why I said accidentally piggybacking. But look at this graph. This is borrowed from the NVBCP Orissa for last month. We track this on a monthly basis. Red is 2016. Green is 2017. Purple is 2018. The state data is showing that for the first half of 2017, malaria was more than the previous year. And suddenly, from July, it started dropping. And by December, we had an 80% reduction. which this year is holding. This is why Orissa is now being acclaimed. So I just want to pick up a few personal learnings from this journey. The first is to say our calling is not necessarily to success. Our calling is to obedience to the higher call, to share the pain of our people. I say dream. Dream of outcomes, not just of vehicles, and start walking towards that dream. Pitch your tent in the battlefield and stick it up. There will be bad days. There will be good days. And it takes time for change to come. However much we know about something, there is still more to learn. Go deep. The most exquisite expertise is still of no use if it is not used to make a difference to people. The community is the solution, not the problem. Build community capacity. As Gandhiji would say, be the change you want to see. And even a below average second attempt MBBS passed doctor can make a difference. Why not?